back in the back room. I'm Brett McNeil.
And I'm Bob Uphues.
And we're here with Steve Loranz from Kinslahger Brewing in Oak Park.
Thank you.
Steve, thanks for joining us in the back room at Luo's Peking House. And we're just hoping to talk a little bit about your transition from the world of tech as an adult into a full-time brewer. And I believe that you started this project. You've got a couple of partners, a couple of business partners, but you started as a home brewer and now are kind of flying a commercial flag.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started, trying to remember how long ago it was I started. It wasn't actually that long ago.
As a home brewer.
As a home brewer, yeah. It was just, something I was interested in. A lot of guys I was working with in tech were home brewers as well. So I just basically, picked up a bunch of books and started reading about it and decided to give it a go. And, it was a lot of fun. And I don't know, just kind of went from there. Just, like a lot of home brewers, and a lot of guys from tech too. Like the whole, move from tech and go to home brewing. I think that's
this is a movement.
It's like, another
it's
one.
A thing.
It's kind of a thing. Yeah,
it's a
Maybe
trope.
Backup plan in case the technology industry crashes.
Right.
Did you ever think of it as this is something that could be more than a hobby? I mean, when did it did it cross your mind that might be something you would do?
I don't know. I guess it was more. It was kind of right away, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, because
that this was a goal as you sat in your kitchen trying to.
Well, it was in the garage.
Oh,
yeah. It was like we got.
It was already
one of the guys that I worked
kitchen.
with, and my dad, and some friends on the block, and I got a couple of kits, and I made those first 2 kits in the garage, and the first one was with a bunch of people, and the second one I just did by myself. And I guess I'm the kind of person. I have to if I want to start learning something new, I have to read every book that's ever been written about it before I start, and then I, do years of planning, and then finally dive into it instead of other people that are just I think I know how to do it, and they just do it.
Right.
I admire those people for being able to do that. It slows me down. But that first one, I was kind of this is really fun. I'd like to focus more because I know I'm doing a lot of things wrong.
Right.
And that's why I did the second one by myself.
So that first beer or the first beers that you were brewing, and at Kinslahger, which by the way is on Roosevelt Road, just west of Oak Park Avenue in Oak Park,
right?
The brewery focuses on lagers.
Yeah, lagered beer actually.
Lagered beer. Yeah, forgive me.
No.
However, when you first started doing your own, was that what you were also focusing on? Was that, or were you doing different kinds of things?
Well, I mean, I did a bunch of stuff as a home brewer, but I think even as a before being a home brewer, being a beer drinker, I did kind of focus on finding German style beers, which tend to be lagers, and then I kind of got into that just because you don't see a whole lot of them out there, finding those beers, and I enjoy just about every lagered style I've had. I should be honest, I'm a beer drinker. I like a lot of beer, but it's just I started actually as a beer drinker focusing on that, and then when I started making beers, it was kind of with the goal of, well, I'm going to make fresh versions of that as close as I can because they're hard to find. So that was kind of the goal as a home brewer, and then I kind of started looking at the market. It took me a good 10 years from the point where I was said, boy, it'd be really fun to open up a brewery, to turning the lights on and saying the brewery's open.
And when did that brewery open? What was the?
We opened up the tap room March of 2016. So we started brewing about January. Getting everything kind of stocked up to get the tap room ready and stuff like that.
So coming up on 2 years of operating on Roosevelt Road.
Yeah, spring.
And you purchased the building, correct?
We did, yeah.
So
yeah.
When did that happen? What were you faced with in terms of converting what was, I think, a printing shop or something like that?
It was a printer copier repair business. Yeah.
So what did it take to convert that into a working brewery?
Well, my so I have 2 partners, and
their names are.
So the first partner is, I swear to you, this is not a lie, Neil Armstrong.
Great name.
And
pioneering name, really.
That's right. And our third partner, Keith Heisinga. So Neil and I we met through some mutual friends, and we kind of started the Oak Park Homebrewers Club that's going now. It's actually really strong group, a lot of good guys and
You guys
ladies.
still involved in that?
Yeah. Actually, when we host the meetings, we're proud to host the meetings
tap
now.
room?
Yeah, at the tap room. Yeah, fourth Tuesday of the month. So it's nice to be able to sit with those people and talk beer and judging beer and stuff like that. So the two of us met at the beginning of that, and then Keith actually joined that group. So I met Keith through that, and then kind of as we.
So you're the pros
became
that emerged from that
friends.
club. That's pretty interesting. Are there others?
Well, there's
who've-
others too, like Catherine and Chris at Exit Strategy were part of that club
Oh,
early
okay.
on, and then Sean and Jason.
It's like a beer incubator here in Oak Park. It's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're serious about it, like you kind of those people tend to find each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Sean and Jason, who are opening up on Lake Street in Austin, they came out of that club as well, and then Jim from Oak Park Brewing. I was not part of the club. I did not get a chance to meet him until after they had announced that they were going to be here. I met him before they opened, and he and his wife Christina, great friends. Love hanging out with them at festivals and stuff, which is about the only time we all get to see each other, other than like homebrew meetings, is festivals, because we're all
Right.
busy working. So, yeah.
What do you think the market can handle here? This is something that Bob and I were kind of puzzling over before we sat down with you. We counted, so Oak Park Brewery, Two Brothers isn't brewing here, but they've got a
Right,
shop, this
right.
Wild Onion that just opened up. You were the first, I think, is that right, in Oak Park? We've
We were
got-
the first to open. Hamburger Mary's Oak Park Brewing opened like a month later,
Right.
but they were the first to announce.
Okay.
So they spent a lot of time working on their facility.
Yeah.
The shop that you just mentioned that's upcoming at Lake and Austin.
Mm-hmm.
And then we know there's one at Stanley and Oak Park down in Berwyn.
Well, I mean, I think that the market can actually handle quite a bit. When you look at all the ones you just mentioned, we're kind of the outlier because we're actually a production facility. So, we have a tap room, and I think at this stage in the market, you have to have a tap room as a production facility because, it's just margin-wise, it helps quite a bit, right? Otherwise, you have to distribute a lot of beer right away, and people don't know who you are, and why are
Right.
they going to buy your beer, right? So for us, the tap room is very important, but the majority of our business is that beer goes out the back door to restaurants and bars and grocery stores and convenience stores and those kinds of
As a
places.
percentage of your production, how much of it is being wholesaled versus what you're selling?
Well,
on
that's
Roosevelt Road?
changing, right? Because the first year, you don't make that much beer, and a lot of it went out the tap room. But it's, shifting where the vast majority of it. I think, the goal is something like 90% to 10%, but I think it's going to end up being even more than that goes out the back door compared to the tap room.
And
So for us, the tap room it's a place for us to kind of like make the experience what we want. When people have our beer, it's a great place to talk to people directly and tell them why we're doing the stuff that we're doing, and things like that. And then margin's really good out of that compared to like wholesale sales. But the other ones that you mentioned are brew pubs or restaurants, right?
So mainly it's on-site sales.
Mainly on-site sales, yeah, for
Right.
most of those, right? And the thing about that is, people talk about a bubble, right? Well, how many restaurants are there? There's no end to the number of restaurants. Like, what nobody ever talks about is like the burger joint bubble, right? Because
certainly not in Oak Park. Plenty of
Yeah,
burger
exactly.
joints.
right? Like, if you like a new burger joint opens up, you're like, great, a burger joint, closer to home. No one's like, oh man, another burger joint, So I think that
Although I might argue that there are more burger eaters than there are craft beer drinkers. I mean, you know this better. This is your job. But I mean,
Yeah.
what is the slice of the pie among people? And I have a picture in my head who is participating in these beer
Well, I think
events and what that.
But I mean, the thing is that it's like these are they're restaurants that also make beer, right? I mean, yes, that is a restaurant that has put in more capital because there's more equipment, specialized
Yeah.
equipment for the brewing aspect of it than just a regular restaurant. And there's a little bit more regulatory requirements and things that you have to keep up on. But it's a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
With a brewer on staff,
Yeah.
or as one of the owners or something, right? So I really don't think that. I think that we had a lot of brew pubs before, or even you can look at it like bars too, right? It's the combination of a bar and a restaurant,
Yep.
right? So they're all over the place. I think that brew pubs are gonna take a little bit more of that slice from some of those other types of businesses rather than the necessarily the beer market, right? Like you can still grab from those sections. For us, I think it's a little bit more difficult because you're talking about shelf space, you're talking about tap handles, things like that, and there is a lot of that out there. So it's how do you become a compelling choice, not just for a consumer, right, but for a retailer to say,
I'm going to put a couple of those handles in here.
Yeah, like they have to buy product and then they have to sell that product in order to make money, right? So are we going to be a product that sells for them so that they can make money? And are we going to do the job that we need to do to be compelling so that that
And does that
happens?
start primarily in the Chicago market and then kind of growing from there? I think of New Glarus or those Wisconsin breweries that have had a lot of success up there, and they kind of were local and expanded.
I don't know that there's really a set model, right? I mean, you can look at any number of breweries and everybody does something different, right? I know Off Color, they are a little bit more scattered, and I think that that's working for them very well because they have really unique beers, and maybe they're not like gonna flood one market. They're gonna go out to select places where they know that works. Some places will go straight to Chicago right away. We basically decided we were going to start right here in Oak Park and be, hopefully very deeply entrenched within our own community because we, all three of us live here. So that was kind of our plan, and from Oak Park start to spread out, a little bit further. So, I think for us it's a little bit easier to do it that way because we know a lot of people here, and it's easier for people to get to the tap room and kind of take in that experience and that story. And then as we start to go further out, it's more difficult because we have to try to spread ourselves out there and talk to people and try to explain who we are and what we're trying to do and why you should give us a shot.
I do want to just say, I mean, this is a cool job that you've got. I mean, it's like a kind of a fantasy job. You're working in beer.
I mean, I love it.
I hope it's not like becoming a musician in a band and it's like too much work and it's not fun touring anymore. I mean, it seems like this is kind of
fun. No, for sure. And I mean, I wake up stressed out every day, but it's a good stress, right? Because it's it's problems that I want to solve. But I tell people that I'm basically a janitor that knows just enough organic chemistry to like make people happy. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of like scrubbing and cleaning and working with dangerous chemicals and heat and but at the end of the day, like when I worked software, I'd spend all this time and late nights I'd work on a piece of software and I'd release the software and people would say like, oh, I wish it did this. Or, I think you missed the mark on that. I bet 1.1 is going to be really good, And then you give people a beer and they're like, oh man, this is awesome, and like and then people start talking to you like, boy, how'd you learn how to make beer? No one's like, how'd you learn how to write software? Like, no one cares about that, right? Like, everyone's interested in
the
beer,
fruits of the
so.
labor are definitely more enjoyable.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. But it's hard work.
Can you? I mean, as you were talking about, we were talking about the scope of the business. Your scope is getting bigger because right now you're in the midst of basically redoing your brewing system inside your building, right?
Yeah, we're hopefully getting to the end of that. I'm hoping to be brewing on that again, within the next 3 weeks.
And
4
can you
weeks.
give people a sense of kind of what this change out means for you guys?
And volume, right?
I mean, what it means for us volume wise is potentially quadrupling, the capacity of that building. And
Steve,
that's
where does
really-
that put you? I mean, 4 times of what?
I'm going to decline to say that right now.
Not to give away your secrets.
But it's it's a respectable amount. I mean, it's sustainable. It would mean if we never grew past that, we would be a sustainable business.
Great.
No problem.
Wow.
Right. And who knows where we go from there. But yeah, it's a long process to do that, especially the way we did it because our building is so small and We knew that going in, that the building was small, it's going to be tight, it's going to be a challenge to work within that space. But again, we wanted to be in Oak Park, at least to start. And, we'll stay there. I mean, like you said, we own the building, like that's always going to be there. But, if we ended up going past that, we'd probably get a second location. I don't know that would be in Oak Park. But, it's because it's so small, we had to basically swap everything out. So we had to get all the smaller tanks. We had 4 8 barrels and 2 20 barrels, and a barrel's 31 gallons. And we replaced that with 4 60s, a 45, and then we kept one of the 20s. Okay. And then the brew house was 5 hectoliters, which is about 4 barrels, and we replaced that with a 15 barrel system. Okay. So it's really tight in there. You guys saw it the other day, but not so bad. It's actually more room than I thought I was going to have. So it's pretty easy to work in there now. It's just got to make the beer. Got to get some more beer out of there.
One of the things that surprised me, actually, is when you go into the tasting room, you don't see the brewery.
Yeah.
And that apparently was an intentional act on your part.
Yeah.
But, I think the expectation is that you walk in and there's going to be
like a plexiglass wall
with gleaming copper tanks or something in the background.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of wanted the tap room to be its own thing. And I mean, again, speaking as someone who likes to go out to breweries and drink beer and everything, I kind of felt like once you've seen some stainless, you've seen some stainless. Like the tanks pretty much all look the same.
Don't need to go on another brewery tour.
Well, I mean, people love doing brewery tours, and I think that those can be fun as well. But I mean, the experience of like sitting down and having that beer, or I guess for us, the way we wanted the tap room to be was more just kind of communal space, right? Not so much about the beer, right? I want you to come into the tap room and enjoy the beer, but hopefully that's just an accessory to, talking with your friend or, family members or celebrating something or, getting something off your chest or whatever it is, right? So, I'm not asking people to come into the, the tap room and, say, oh, I can really, smell this or that. I just want you to enjoy it, and we're there to talk with you about it if you do want to do that, because we love talking about beer as well. But first and foremost, I just want you to enjoy it, and enjoy your time.
Also, and Brett and I were talking about this before you got here today, which is September 10th. Right now, as we sit here, the Chicago Bears, the Chicago Cubs, and the Chicago White Sox are all playing games at the same time.
Right.
You could have 3 TVs with each game on there. You could be packing them in like a sports bar, and you chose not to do that. Can you talk about that decision? Because it seems to me like that, that might be not driving away business, but not attracting as many people as maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely see like on Thursday we saw a real light crowd, because that was the very first day of the NFL
opener.
But, our decision, again, it goes back to what's the experience we want to create, when you're having that beer, right? I want it to be more communal. I want it to be people, I don't know, playing games, talking to each other, whatever, not necessarily like staring at a TV, Not
a bar. I mean, it doesn't feel like a bar, to be frank. I mean, it's a different aesthetic.
Yeah. I mean, and it's worked out. I mean, the first week or two, we noticed it right away. People were sitting at the bar that didn't know each other and just start talking. We've seen people that have come regularly now. They know each other and are friends in some respect. People push tables together and play games. Like we've got games there. People come in and read and but there's a lot of conversation, and that's what I like. I don't have anything against TVs. I don't have anything against sports. I'm not like, I like watching the Bears. But. And Keith loves watching the Cubs, right? And sometimes he'll have the radio on the Cubs, but for the most part, like I said, our goal is most of the beer is going to go out the back door to other restaurants and bars and stuff like that. So hopefully you're still enjoying a Kinslahger somewhere and watching the game, right? So for me, I feel like it's a win-win, right?
And I have to say, I mean, it wasn't. We were there on Friday, and it was't missed.
No,
it was great to just.
And then
I know some people come in specifically because of that. That there's not TVs and they love that. So
and there's more conversation.
Yeah.
And that's definitely evident.
Yeah. for
Yeah.
sure.
You know, and we've got a lot of great accounts that have TVs and where you can watch the game. So, you know,
Go there. And go Bears.
Right.
All right.
So you guys have basically 5 brews that you do, I think, all the time, right?
Yeah.
And then you have a special.
We have our
brew that-
flagships.
Yeah.
So the Prohibition Pilsner, the Chicago Common. We do a Dusseldorf alt beer, a Munich Dunkel, and then a Baltic Porter.
Right.
So the first two, the Prohibition Pilsner and the Chicago Common, are the first ones to go out in cans. So you can find those out in grocery stores now and things like that. And that's a huge milestone for us. You know, it's one of those things that, you know, once you're out and you see it, you're just like, man.
And
You're on a
where-
shelf.
What's the
Yeah.
distribution sort of angle of that? Because I think initially it was just at a couple of places. Are you selling it at
And now
more places
Burke
now?
carries you, is that right? Burke Beverage?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're one of our distributors. We were self-distributing for the first year-ish, and then as we started to get into the plan of getting cans out there, we wanted to start working with distributors to, they have those relationships
Sure.
with so many more retailers, and they have the infrastructure to logistically get the beer to places that we don't have, and so it was just the right choice for us at that time, and we wanted to spend that first year or so kind of proving that we can make the beer and that people would drink the beer, and kind of
Sure.
like what we're about and things like that. And I think that worked out because, once we started talking with distributors, we had something to show them, an
And
idea
is that
of who we
Pilsner
were.
is that your number one seller?
No, I would say the Pilsner and the Common are neck and neck.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, those are definitely the two best sellers.
I've seen more efforts from microbrews to produce Pilsners, but that seems relatively new. I mean, I think of like very hoppy IPAs and the heavy beers, and now maybe in the last couple of years I've seen a couple of Chicago-based breweries with Pilsners. Is that a more labor-intensive production? I think of Pilsners coming from
No.
Germany and that sort of thing, but why haven't we seen that before now? I like Pilsners is why I'm asking this question.
Well, I think the reason is that the market, the American palate was all very hop driven, very, very bitter beers for so long. And then I think now we're kind of moving away from super bitter IPAs, although, there's still a lot of them out there, to, a little bit more smooth, but like flavor and aroma rich IPAs rather than, bitter bombs. And I think that there's a place for everything, but some people are starting to say, oh, man, I'm, really tired of, super bitter beers or whatever. And, so now Pilsners are a nice, clean, rounded out beer. A lot of Pilsners are. Ours has got a little bit more crispness to the back end, I think. But, and also brewers love them, brewers really love Pilsners too, most of them, so that's the beer that a lot of brewers like to make, so they're starting to see that there's a market for it. And, obviously there's a market for it. It's one of the biggest selling beers in the world, is premium Pilsner, right?
Well, I like that turn in microbrew. Did you have a specific kind of beer in mind when you were, thinking that I want the Pilsner to be kind of like this beer? Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of Pilsners that are, like I said, more rounded, a little bit more malty. For us, it's my interpretation of basically how a Pilsner might have been, pre-Prohibition, where you had these Czech and German immigrants coming in, bringing their hops, and they liked hops as well, nice clean beer with a bit of, bitterness to kind of give it a crisp finish, a lot of aroma, a lot of like earthy, flowery aroma from the American and, Czech hops. And, a little bit of sweetness on the corn too, because that's what they would have been using, as they came here to get that nice, straw color, nice and bright. Just gives it a little sweetness to balance out the hop bitterness at the end. So that's what I was going for. We kind of shortened it to be Prohibition Pilsner, but that's
Not pre-prohibition. Pilsner.
Not pre-prohibition. Yeah.
Too many
That'd be,
beans.
yeah. After a few of them, you're like,
Give me the Pilsner.
Yeah, give me the Pilsner. Right. Exactly.
Well, you were also in the vanguard here. I mean, this is a dry town forever and ever, Oak Park. And you and your partners in this beer club, I mean, we're really seeing Oak Park, one, sort of just culturally change from what was a, kind of a Protestant pure. This is why Forest Park exists, basically, to be frank, and, to bury people. But Oak Park now seems like a beer town.
It's becoming there, yeah. It's getting there. I mean, we didn't start this, obviously, right? I mean, Poor Phil's is
forever.
I mean, they really give them the credit, right? You had Kinderhook for a while, now you got Beer Shop. There's a lot of good places. There's always been a lot of good places in Oak Park and around to get good beer.
But also a reluctance by village elders to sort of provide the imprimatur to do this. I mean, Poor Phil's is a restaurant first,
right. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, if it's going to happen, it was going to happen on certain terms, right? And I don't necessarily disagree with it. I mean, I think that there is a little bit of, like, we can't just have a bar, right, kind of thing. Like, you can't just be a bar. And it's like, well, it's not evil. It's just you got to have the right mentality of running that bar. The restrictions were a little bit lighter on us, but we still have to have food. When we're serving alcohol.
Is that why you sell Landjaeger and?
Yeah. I mean, it could have been as simple as just like a package of pretzels, or chips or something. But that's not really what we wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We wanted to. We'd all been to Germany and sat in like the alt breweries in Dusseldorf and everything, and really love like that style of like getting a piece of bread with bacon and or blood sausage or something like that, right? So we kind of wanted to bring at least some of that over, and I feel like we've done pretty well. Like we've got the bread, pretzels, we've got Landjaeger cheese, we got the pickles now from Opportunity Knox, and they're actually doing pickled eggs for us, which I love. So yeah, it's that's kind of why we did that. We had to do something. We wanted it to be a little bit higher, a little notch higher.
Mm-hmm.
And on Friday you had the carnivore folks out in
that
front
Ministry
of
of Sandwiches truck was there.
Yeah, they started doing that. They're doing it pretty much every Friday, and then through the winter, they're kind of like, Brad, why don't you come inside? Be warm, So during the winter, he usually has a table in the back and does something hearty. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we love having them out too.
Yeah, and if people can't get to the tasting room, I know that you're going to be at an event later this month in Riverside, right? Aren't you going to be at the Hop Stop?
We are, yeah. We're at a lot of events, actually. Yeah. I think he's got something, at least once a week.
Okay.
Sometimes more.
I ran into Steve recently at the Brookfield Zoo.
That's right.
Yeah, brew at the zoo.
Yeah. That was really fun. There was a lot of people that night.
It was a big crowd.
Yeah, it was good. A lot of fun.
Yeah, so but, I know of that one. Obviously, I edit the paper in Riverside, and the proceeds go to the Homestead Society. So
nice.
They do good work.
Where else are you? I mean, where are you on a handle right now that people could, if they're not coming to Roosevelt Road and Oak Park Avenue?
You're putting me on the spot.
Okay,
I don't have the list really. It's but
is that on your website or?
It's not on our website right now. I mean, I know that we're going to do an event soon at Poor Phil's. Okay. We tend to be over at Beer Shop at times. Leia has our cans now, which is great. Okay. We're at like Friendly. We're at Fitzgerald's while that's still around. Wire. Obsessed. Mm-hmm. A lot of places in town. We're starting to get further out. Warren's out in Wheaton, I think. Okay.
So it's pretty good.
Yeah,
reach.
we're getting out there. Yeah, for sure. Like Keith is pounding the pavement and telling our story. Yeah. So it's been working out.
Let me ask you this: if you're not drinking your own beer, mm-hmm. what do you like to drink? And I don't mean just craft beer. I mean what's your your comfort go to when you're.
I mean, the thing is that your taste changed so much based on the situation, how tired you are or not, or what you just had to eat, or if you're starving or whatever. So it really changes for me. I don't make IPAs, but I like IPAs. So, I'll drink some IPAs every now and then. And I like ciders. Citizen makes this, the ginger lemon one. I like that one a lot. I like a lot of different stuff. It's hard for me to, pin one thing down as like, that's the thing I'm going to have.
The Trib just had, a blind taste test with some people from, like, Revolution. Did you see this thing?
Yeah.
And Josh Knoll. And I think it was, Pabst, Hams, and Miller Lite came out in the top three.
Yeah, it was like Hams, right? It was like the beer refreshing.
That's right.
And you can buy that, like, at McGaffer's for $2 a can, I think,
Right.
something like that.
$2.
$2 on a Tuesday. Yeah, that's
Seems like a lot.
well, they're cold.
right.
They do refrigerate.
Yeah,
them.
you got to pay for the refrigeration.
That's great.
Well, what's next? I mean, we've talked a little bit about the ramping up of the production. I don't know. Is it just kind of steady as it goes?
What's your fall /
Yeah.
winter special going to be?
Well, I mean, right now, once we get back up and running, it's we're focused on making sure that the flagships are available.
Yeah.
And I think that the main goal is growth. Like through 2018. That's not to say that the tap room will definitely have one-offs and seasonals and stuff like that, but I would say that's going to start winter 2018 rather than as soon as we get back up and running.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have a question about the tap room.
Sure.
You don't take any cash.
We don't.
One, why? And two, is that, I mean, it's your call, but don't you have to accept American currency?
Well, we do. We just do it digitally.
Electronic, but I can't give you legal tender.
Yeah, I've got.
I mean, place to put it.
I'm not like
Yeah,
a currency lawyer or anything. I'm
Right,
just
right.
curious about the why that, and also the no tipping.
Those are two separate things right there. But the no cash, early on, I was kind of trying to think about how we were going to run the tap room, and it seemed to me that no cash was a little safer, and it also made us more accountable. So I have concerns anywhere. I don't care where your location is, right, of having one or two people behind a bar late at night and someone walking in and
Sure.
wanting to empty the cash drawer. You said like we are kind of like in a town that wants to see things run in a specific way, and I also wanted to be able to do that. I wanted to be able to show them like there's nothing below table here, right? Everything's above board. So if they ever come to me and say like, we want to see your records, I can easily do that. There's every transaction is accounted for. And then there's fees that are part of having cash as well. It's not like credit card is the only thing that has
cost associated with it.
Exactly. It's like you have to go to the bank and there's miscounting and stuff like that, and it's not a perfect situation. So it seemed easier for us, and it also makes it a little bit easier behind the bar to not to have to mix. You just do it the one way, which is use cards, and so many people have that, even if it's a prepaid card nowadays, that
Right.
it just was a way to do it. There are some people that don't like it and are put off by it.
Sometimes I just want to leave money on the table and walk out.
Sure.
Just a convenience issue.
Yeah. But I feel like especially when we tend to have two people there, either person is able to get it and
Handle that
turn it,
transaction.
real quickly. So I feel like it hasn't been too big of a concern for most people.
And I guess I did ask two questions in one, but no tipping. And it seems like a point of pride for you all, or not.
I don't know.
Right?
Yeah, I mean it is what it is. I think that we try to do right by our employees. I would love to do more, and at some point we will. Like I'd love to provide health insurance right now, but there's only a few of us, and we're all kind of on our own on the exchange at this point, right? So please don't get rid of that. But
Right, they're watching.
Yeah,
Definitely.
right. Yeah, I know Trump's team's right
just
on
sealed
this.
their
they're-
fate.
they're
Yeah,
on
asked them not to do
Yeah,
something.
exactly. So yeah, I mean, the easiest thing that we can do is try to pay a living wage, right? And part of the no tipping is sort of like we want our team members to be on our team, right? So one of the things associated with our liquor license in the tap room is that I can't serve you more than 5 servings, which is actually
That's
really
interesting.
generous. It's actually really, really generous when you
I can't imagine drinking 5 of those beers and then like making it home. I mean, that's-
right, exactly. So I mean, people are like, oh, that's a restriction. I'm like, no one ever hits that restriction. Don't worry about it. But you can see someone who can really handle their liquor being able to do that and want a 6th, and you don't want not that anybody on our team would, but at some point you don't want a patron saying, hey, come on, buddy, just
I'll take care of you.
yeah,
give me one
another
more.
one, and then that's a slippery slope, right? So we just want to take that off the table. There's also, I know a lot of people that work in service, and I feel like there are patrons, and they're few and far between, but there are patrons that think that tipping is a right for them to be jerks, and I want to take that off
I can
the
treat you
table.
the way I want to treat you because
Exactly,
I'm paying
right.
you for.
And these are, my teammates.
Your time.
This is like family to me, right? I don't want anyone to have to go through that. So I don't want that to be a thing at all. So it's not necessarily a point of pride. It's just, again, I think practicality wise, like there's
And it's interesting.
reasons not to do
I mean, it's different from a service standpoint and a service industry standpoint. It's a bit of an outlier. It's
yeah, and even then as well, like there's times where the tap room's slow. Boy, that really
Yeah.
is bad if you're
depending on tips.
Yeah. So I really don't want that to be an issue either, right? Like
Right.
these are my friends. These are like family
Plus,
to me.
The tap room is, I mean, it's a bar, but it's not a bar.
Right.
I mean, the hours, you're not open late on weeknights typically. It's,
Right.
9 or 10 o'clock or
10
something.
o'clock
like
you
on
that.
close
weeknights,
when
yeah.
you close on Sunday. It's not a late
It's like-
night on a.
No,
Today
it's-
we'll close at 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes we'll have private parties after that, starting at 6. But so like Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays, those are like our days where if we're gonna do a private event, we'll do them those days.
Now,
But
were those hours determined by, your liquor license as being
Yes.
a brewery, or was that
yeah,
Okay.
our specific liquor license originally was 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then after a while, we went to them and asked, can we, go to midnight? And I think we had enough of a track record at that point that they were comfortable with that. And so far, we're really only doing that Fridays and Saturdays.
Oh, but you could do that.
Yeah.
The other days. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know the hours are different on the
Yeah,
weekends right now.
but I mean, there's only so many of us, and
Right.
it's a lot of time in the tap room,
Yeah.
and there's only so many people that come through, so we'll, as that changes, we might change the hours. But
Well, it's so interesting to me. You guys are flourishing on Roosevelt Road, which has traditionally been kind of a tough sell in this town. And we were talking, Connolly's closed here just recently. It's
Yeah.
tough. I mean, there's been a fair amount of vacancy.
yeah,
You have traction in a little bit of an out of the way location. I
Yeah.
mean, there's not a lot of foot traffic there, maybe from the CVS, but doing business in Oak Park. I mean, you've talked a bit about sort of a cautious approach, trying to work with the village, getting support, and then over time having them become more supportive.
they were supportive right from the get go. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they helped us. They ushered us through. I think the thing is that being from Neil and I are both in Oak Park. Neil's in River Forest, but we all know how these village government works. We kind of came in with the attitude of we know that there's stuff that's going to need to happen. We just need to know what and how long it takes, and that way we can kind of judge our schedule and know. And they were like, perfect. We're going to help you out, And I think too
Rather
often,
than trying to cram a timeline on them.
I think
and
too often people come in and say like, I needed to be open 3 months ago, and they're like, well, you need to go through this, this, and this, and they're like, I can't do that, So they were very helpful. The planning commission, because we had to get a variance on that building to go like the next step up to make it commercial instead of like a business license or business zoning. They're very helpful with that. They're very helpful with, making sure that we were on the right timeline for the liquor license and things like that. And, I think they're nice people.
good.
I don't know. I don't have any complaints.
We're kind of near the end of the interview, but how about some stories? Just maybe like a learning curve story. You didn't blow up a fried turkey, but some botch, or I don't know. Is there a budding rivalry between Kinslahger and some Chicago-based brewery? It sounds like it's actually kind of a collegial and problem-solving community.
It is, yeah.
But maybe there's some carpetbagger, a bunch of Wisconsin people. I don't know. I mean, who are the bad guys? What's
I don't
it like?
think there's. I haven't met any bad guys at this point. I've met a lot of nice people. Definitely people that are always willing to help out in some way, give you some advice.
Are we supposed to be upset about the Goose Island sale to Anheuser-Busch, or is like? I feel as though, in some ways, like the world that you inhabit, this craft brew world, is many of the people of my age. These are all indie rock fans, and they've taken some of the cred from indie rock and grafted it onto micro brews or brews, and who's more legit or this. Do you want to get a major label deal at some point and get the kind of Goose Island production or distribution? I know that's way down the road, but
yeah, our goal really is to stay independent.
Great,
and that's the majority of the breweries out there. That's their goal. No, I don't slight Goose for doing what they did, and I think that people have a maybe somewhat simplistic view of what those sales are. There's a really good article out there talking about sort of how big these ledger sheets are for these big breweries, and how in some way these sales are helping them sort of narrow the gap between their premium lines and then the price point of craft beer, right? So it is kind of depressing some of the craft side, but it's also trying to raise some of their side, because as they lose a little bit of market share, they need to make more on that beer that they are selling in order to not have a loss, not realize a loss. So it was a really good article, and I think it's it's very well written. It's very well takes all these things into account, and I think shines a light on how complicated it all is. I don't think anybody is really big bad beer trying to squash us anymore. Maybe at some point they thought that, but I'm part of different trade organizations, and there's a couple that the chemists and the brewers and the QA people from these big breweries belong to, and you mix with them, and they just like making beer too. Making and drinking beer. They're not bad people. They're not they're not like the Empire, right? They're it's just a big company that has to think about where its money comes from. So
Well, how about, sticking with the band theme, and then I'll turn it over to Bob, but how about who are your favorite bands in this world? What are the breweries that
Well, you mentioned New Glarus before, and I love New Glarus. I think Dan's a brewer among brewers. He's great. Everything they make is just solid. If you ever get a bad beer from there, something's wrong.
But they can't sell it out of the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, but you can buy it in every single gas station in Wisconsin. It's not hard to find.
I think it's like Russian River is kind of like this too. They like where they're at, right? It's a lifestyle thing, right? They don't need to be national and have all the stuff that comes with that. They've got a really successful business that they're very proud of, and why wouldn't you just go with that? Yeah. It's I think that there's a mentality in especially the U.S. that everything's got there's got to be year-over-year
quarterly growth.
Oh, yeah. All the time, right? If it flattens out, you're a failure. And it's no, if you are sustainable and you have something that you love doing, that's great. Isn't that what we're all striving for? Yeah. And some, I think some people aren't, but
Well, it certainly makes it more special when I go to Wisconsin and I can get it.
Right.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And certainly the Mars Cheese Castle takes advantage of that, or the Broad Stop is socking it to Illinois, drivers for their beer.
Yeah. Well, listen, Steve, it's been great talking to you. Thanks a lot for,
having me,
coming
yeah.
here. And so if people want to visit the Kinslahger tasting room, it is at 6806
Yeah.
Roosevelt Road in Oak Park. Open, I think.
We're open Wednesday through Sunday.
Okay.
Check our website for hours.
And what's your website?
It's www.kinslahger, KINSLAHGER.com.
Great.
Great.
Thanks a lot.
Steve,
Thank
thanks.
you.